All right, Matt. Time to just do the finishing touches on your character. Now, in your session, we got a little farther.
Hmm.
You had established that as a half-orc barbarian, you were interested in the noble background, which a lot of people thought was really cool, and myself included.
Hmm.
Um, Explain a little bit about the background, about your character,
About
because you kind of
his,
had a cool concept. So go ahead.
yeah, Maximillian, the half orc. He was raised by his human father as a noble, and his father was really embarrassed that he was, a half orc. So he did his best to try and raise him human, but he kind of has orc mind, so proper English and all that didn't sit very well.
Hmm.
So he retains really high level vocabulary, but none other proper English.
Okay.
Just really advanced vocabulary words.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
That's a really cool role playing concept. I
Hmm.
dig it, and it really it's a cool way to tie in this barbarian concept with the noble background.
Hmm.
So we already wrote in most of your like all of your proficiencies and your special abilities from being and your racial traits and all the noble features. So really, it just comes down to kind of equipping your character. Now, as a noble background, you get some things.
Sure.
And we already put in your skill proficiencies, the tool proficiency of a gaming set. You decided to go with a deck of cards.
Hmm.
You get an additional language, which we'll get to in a minute, and then you get a few things. So on the bottom middle, where you have equipment and stuff
Equipment,
down
yep.
there, go ahead and write in. You have a set of fine clothes. Whether you wear them or not is totally up to you.
Right.
A signet ring.
Okay.
A scroll of pedigree. So this is basically like a scroll that, describes your noble lineage, presumably your father's side of the family.
Yeah.
And then you have 25 gold pieces. So you see those little things right there?
Hmm.
These are each of the boxes. If you look really closely, it'll be like CP,
Yeah.
SP.
So
That's
GP would be
yeah, GP is gold pieces. So
So-
go ahead and write in 25.
25. Gotcha.
And so what's funny is that your half-orc barbarian has this noble background, but not from the orc side.
No.
From your father's side.
Yes.
Okay.
Inside.
Cool. So we're not going to worry too much about armor. You have some clothes. You can start off with an explorer's pack. So write that down under your equipment. Now your physical stats between strength and dexterity, which is the best?
Strength.
Okay, so you have a beast strength, and it would make a lot of sense to consider your melee attacks because your strength is higher. Okay,
Yes.
I'm not pigeonholing you. You could choose to be a finesse fighter if you wanted, but your strength is really your advantage. And more importantly, when you use your barbarian rage, that has an impact on your strength attacks and damage as well.
Yeah.
So when you consider weapons, what do you envision this character using?
Like an axe. Some
Like-
kind of axe. Yeah.
Because there are a variety. I mean, there are great axes, which are two-handed weapons,
Mhm.
or you could do a one-handed axe and a shield.
Mhm.
The shield would grant you a higher armor class if
Would.
you wanted to do that. So I guess that's something that you need to consider.
Mhm.
You could certainly start with a great axe. You could start with a single-handed battle axe. You could be a sword. You could do spears. I think the traditional thing of a half orc barbarian with an axe is totally fine. But just so you have some options, there's a whole world of weapons. Two-handed and one-handed weapons. Do you imagine throwing any weapons like javelins, spears, anything like that?
No, unless he's really angry and just throws the axe out of.
So
realistic
all right,
ability.
I'll give you some options here. There are hand axes that are lighter weapons that can be thrown.
That'd be cool.
So maybe you have a hand axe that you could use in melee combat or for throwing,
Ooh,
but then you also have another weapon or two other weapons. What do you envision in terms of big weapons? Great axe, great sword. Those are both two-handed weapons. But then there's also single-handed weapons that can also do a fair amount of damage, such as battle axes, long swords, war pick, war hammer.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Those are all single. Now, so again, just so you understand, if you choose a two-handed weapon, you can, swing and you could do a significant amount of damage with that, but you can't use a shield at the same time.
Right.
A shield will give you an armor class bonus of 2. So it's kind of a give and take.
Right.
And like I said, you could also have, like, if you really wanted the two-handed weapon, you could have that, but then you could have a shield slung over your shoulder so that in certain circumstances you could whip out the shield and take your one hand axe or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, I kind of like that with a warhammer. That
Okay.
seems cool.
So let's go ahead and write this down. I'm going to help you. So you're going to write the equipment down in the same area. So
Okay.
write down warhammer, hand axe, and shield. And then we're going to actually write out for your weapons what those are. So up here, write warhammer, and then we're going to calculate your bonuses to hit and to damage. So warhammer is it's a versatile weapon, which means you could use it one-handed. In that case, it does 1d8 damage, or you could use it two-handed and do 1d10 damage. That's the cool thing about versatile weapons.
Cool.
So let's figure out your attack bonus.
Got it.
So your attack bonus with this is going to be your strength bonus, which is
4.
+4, and your proficiency bonus.
2.
So that's +6 to hit in that middle column, +6.
Sweet.
Now damage is going to be, you got to write small because you're writing two things.
Okay.
The first is 1d8
Yep.
+4, and then do slash 1d10 +4. So that's the versatile description.
Yeah.
So if you're using it one-handed with a shield, you're doing 1d8 +4. If you just ditch the shield and go two-handed all out, you're doing 1d10 +4.
Sweet.
Okay. Let's write in your next weapon, which is hand axe. Now, this depends on whether or not you're using it for melee or throwing. So if it's melee, write a little M to the left of it for melee. Okay. If you're doing it melee, that means you're going to take your strength bonus and proficiency bonus, so it's +6. And the damage is 1d6 +4 because of your strength.
Right.
Okay, now write it again, and this time put T parentheses hand axe. So this is if you throw
On
the
the
hand
third
axe.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you throw the hand axe, it's a little different because now you're using dex.
Yes.
So what's your dex bonus?
3.
Okay, so it's +5 total, so 3 and 2,
Right.
which is still pretty darn good.
Pretty
And it's 1d6 +3. So you're not using your strength bonus for damage, you're using your dex bonus.
Gotcha.
Which again is still amazing.
Sweet.
Okay. So you wrote down shields down there.
Yes.
So your armor class is going to be actually 16/18. So if you're wielding your shield, if you're wearing your shield, you get an 18 armor class. If you're not, it's 16.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. So now we have some weapons. We have a pretty strong concept of your character. If you look at your sheet, you have your name done: Barbarian, Half Orc. Under background, write Noble. Under player name, write Matt. And I think we have everything else filled in. Now, there are some other factors that you could choose to use or not use. Your personality traits, your ideals, all those kind of things are there in the player's handbook for you if you want to flesh out your character and give them some ideals, some values.
Probably not.
I feel like for this campaign, since you guys are kind of all starting out new, I'm going to be flexible with those. I'm going to let those come out naturally as we play the game, and then you can fill in those notes to better round out your character's personality and their identity.
Makes sense.
All right, is there any other things that you feel like you need to do? Well, I could see some things right now. So everywhere where you have dots in your skills,
Yes.
we need to fill in those numbers. So what's the first one you have?
Athletics.
Okay, so athletics is strength-based.
So
So you're going to take your strength bonus of 4 and your proficiency bonus. So you have a +6 in athletics, which is fantastic for climbing, swimming, lifting, dragging, pulling, anything heavy-duty strength-based. What's your next one?
history.
Okay, so history is intelligence-based. What's your intelligence bonus?
+1.
So that's a total of +3. Okay, next one.
Intimidation.
That's charisma-based. What's your charisma bonus?
+2.
Okay, so that's a +4. Next one.
Persuasion, also charisma.
Okay, same thing.
+4, and survival.
What's that? Wisdom?
Wisdom, so +2, so +4.
Okay. So you have really well spread stats. I mean, you have really high numbers in strength and constitution and dexterity, but you also have well above average in intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
It doesn't help that I'm making my character not speak fluent English, and then he has above average intelligence.
True, true. But at the same time, I think that that interesting component that you've added to your character with noble, but also being a barbarian, might play out really well in the storyline. You know, you could.
Sure.
There are people who are vocal leaders. You know what I mean? People who talk all the time and they have a really vibrant personality.
Carl.
Yes, Carl. But then there's also the silent leaders. You know, and maybe that's part of your character. Like you don't speak a lot, but when you speak, it's magic.
People listen.
Yeah, people listen, right. So, all right, well, you are all set. So the next time we see you, Matt, will be at the table for session 1, episode 1. So
Sweet.
we'll see you then.